Back with the QC Sportsnet boys, Joe Winkle, Grant Delstrom. We're going to recap the Tuesday night games in the Western Big Six. Look ahead to Friday. We had UT versus Rocky. Rocky won 62-42 and really pulled away in that second half, Grant, to now be solo second in the Western Big Six.
I'll start with UT in this game, and I think that the Panthers' game plan maybe didn't go to plan in that first quarter. It was a 13-4 Rocky lead after one. But I think Andy Say used some early timeouts. His guys made some adjustments, so credit to them for that. And they got in the swing of things in the second quarter. They got some stops defensively. They hit some shots. That led them into the game at halftime. But then in the second half, we really saw what Rocky can do to you. And with their physicality, their speed, they wear you out mentally, they wear you out physically, and they were all over the Panthers for that entirety of the second half. So for UT, they've now lost 4 of their last 5. But yesterday, they, if I'm not mistaken, were up in the rebounding margin almost the entire night. They did some good things, but again, it's kind of that same story where they were unable to, or their defense kept them in the game, but then they were just unable to knock down shots consistently throughout the game and really play up to the speed that Rocky can play against you. And I think that throughout the night, UT just kind of got worn out, and it ended up hurting them. But for the Rocks, they've been really effective, and they executed really nicely last night despite a awfully cold start shooting. They got into the swing of things. They made some adjustments of their own, and they ended up rolling in the second half and had no problem taking care of the Panthers.
Yeah, looking at Rock Island, speaking for our good friend and pal Ken Jacoby, he was talking. He thought that Coach Polite felt, and this is what I'm taking from quote. His guys have responded the right way, unquote. And I thought that I take from that. You think back to the loss last time we were all together. They lost that game to Dunlap, who was going into that game 4-7. That was maybe not an exact fork in the road moment for the Rocks, but what they've done since, they absolutely throttled Geneseo on Friday. They came back yesterday in their most important game over their last month probably, and they did what they did to UT. So very good for them to do that, and I think the biggest thing for them is just staying sharp. Sometimes they've shown obviously that they can get a little unfocused on details at times, and I think we've seen some examples in that. Now can they do so with a big stretch coming up? They're in the middle of, just looking through their opponents here. They're in the middle of a 5-game and 8-day stretch where they'll play on Friday. They'll play Friday against, I believe, Allman, if I'm not mistaken. And then in their MLK tournament, they're taking on Merriman Academy, Urbana, and Illinois Center. And then I believe, I think they're playing East Peoria as well, who's got a very hell of a player in Quentin Kidd who's going to Illinois. So that'd be a fun matchup. So just an important stretch for them. And last night was very big. Was interested to see how those styles would match up. And Rocky was able to handle business at handling some punches from UT and then pulling away.
Sitting on top of the Western Big Six, the Moline Maroons, 61-42 win over Geneseo. What keeps this Maroons team on top of the league at this point in the season?
I think what we've been able to see from them is, they don't have the superpowers that they've had before. So they're not going to be able to just come in and they're going to be able to put the game into an 8th gear, or even break the transmission and go to a gear that nobody else has like we've seen in the past. But they're able to do certain things that can wear you out, and they can have what I like to call a little punches and bunches type offense. Last night, the game, Moline came out a little, they missed some easy shots. They were playing good defense early on. Geneseo was able to hit a couple shots, and then Moline went on some separate runs. They went on an 8-0 run to take the lead that eventually they would never relinquish. Then they went on an 8-1 run to close the first quarter, and the big one after the middle parts of the second quarter turned into a lull. It was a 14-2 run, which lasted the last 3 minutes of the half, but it all happened in about 100 seconds. It was just steal, 3, steal, layup, steal, 3, and it was Brady Welch with 11 of those points. Alante Anderson got a bunch of steals, so they're able to still have that effect when they're able to do so. That can be when they're really tough to beat, is when they can get that aspect of their game going. But a lot of it's just handling their business. They have to play a certain style at times because they don't have, they're not going to be able to go out and just roll with certain teams athletically or physically, and they know that. They're building in those aspects. And the big thing too last night, just looking at a player perspective, Brady Welch, after having a few games where he was, maybe in a little bit of for him, a slump, was awesome. He's 3 straight games now over 20 points. When you look at the last game against Pekin, or 4 straight, I should say. The last game in Pekin, the game against Richwoods, and then the 2 back, 29 against Galesburg in a, let's just call it a weird game that had almost 50 total fouls called. And then the game last night, he was awesome. 27 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, doing it all.
Yeah, Brady Welsh, man,
He's been filling it up.
Seems like the guy.
He's been doing a really good job. And I know that, I think at the top of the conference, it's really kind of, when you look at the super high-end players in the league, I think it's really distributed through just a few teams. And that's nothing against other teams. I just think when you look at, obviously, what Moline and what Rocky has, I think those are, that's probably, when you look at the top 5 players in the conference, Rocky's got 3 of them, and Moline's got the other one. That's 4 at least. And then the 5th one, whoever you want to put up there, can be a plethora of guys any given night. Yeah. So, but Welch is stating the claim so far, trying to obviously help pace this team, and he's been getting, depending on the night, he'll get chip-ins from Josh Hendricks, he'll get chip-ins from Alante Anderson. We've seen Ami Singh have some games, but the main constant usually has been that Brady Welch has been incredibly consistent and taken a massive step. And for what they want to do, which is win a league championship, that's their first goal. He's going to have to continue to do that, and it starts. It continued last night, and they're going to keep needing that on Friday.
Quincy coming in there on Friday. How do you see that one matching up?
Well, it's going to be an interesting game. Quincy's improving. They started off the year very sluggish. Rocky drilled them. They played at home against Sterling and got drilled there. But they're, improving. They were 3-7, 3-8 after the holiday tournament. Grant, you saw them last Friday. It looked like they competed a bit with United Township.
Yeah, they stacked up well in that first half against the Panthers. I think UT made those adjustments to end up rolling them in the second half, but it was still, I think, a closer game than maybe the 18-point margin in favor of UT would show. I think I was impressed with what Quincy did opposed to what I was kind of seeing on paper, record-wise and resume-wise coming into that game.
They literally, we obviously know what they graduated, right? They graduated a true 3-4 year starting class of players that was competing for state championships. They won 2 straight league titles. Like, they were amazing. Yeah. And it's a whole bunch of new guys. The top guy coming into the season from that was returning from last year's team was like last year's 8th guy off the bench. So, they were just, and they've really turned and maybe you can confirm from seeing them last week the exact amount of the youth, but they've kind of just gone fully commit into their youth. I know they have a kid, Leper, the big fella, who's a freshman that they really, really like. He was a really, really good player as a 7th, 8th grader. He's a freshman now. He starts for them. They've got some other really young guys as well that I'm excited to see. It was weird. I talked to my broadcast partner, Danny Peel, last night. We were mentioning how I can't remember the last time UT and Moline played where the game, it wasn't 2 teams that were either top 5 in the state or borderline top 5 in the state. It's pretty much been since COVID. When I know after that the COVID, Quincy had some good teams in the back ends of the 2010s. Then the year they had the COVID team, they really struggled. Moline, that was kind of their first peak year building up to that led to the state title. And then those 2 teams were trading haymakers for the last half decade. So it's going to be a little bit weird, but I still think the game's going to be fascinating. And Quincy's going to have that, nothing to lose mentality. They are improving. They got a really impressive win last night against Allman. So I'm excited to see the matchup. That's for sure.
I'll add one thing about that. You said rolling with their youth. At one point in that game against UT, all 5 guys on the floor for Quincy were sophomores or freshmen. Leper kind of struggled against UT, but UT also has 2 guys taller than him. So it wasn't as favorable as a matchup for him against some other teams in the conference. But I think against Moline, he could have success. So the Maroons will be tested defensively. But with that offense, it's a Quincy defense that's really struggled this season. So the Maroons will have the advantage there.
And real quick, last thing, Moline has been able to be in most matchups against true 5s. They've been able to kind of play some of them off the floor. So I'll be interested to see with the freshman, will he be able to hit his size? He's a big kid, and he's really skilled, so I'm excited to see him play and excited to see what some of their youth is that they're trying to build up. But, that's going to be the biggest matchup is how does Moline, kind of handle him? I expect Dave Peterson's probably going to be the one that guards him early on. And then can Moline, get some or use their shooting as well to really kind of stretch them out. Maybe play him off the floor, play certain matchups out, and handle the game that way.
Another young team is Sterling. That's where UT is going this Friday. How do you see that one shaping out?
Definitely, the Golden Warriors exceptionally young, just 2 seniors on that 13-player roster, and they've really struggled this season. The Panthers going on the road, and hopefully this is a game where they can find some consistency. We saw it in Quincy, and they follow that up with a tough loss at Rock Island. Again, I think we talked about this a lot last week. Losing to good competition for the last 5 losses, 3 of those are to really good opponents. So this is a road game and an opportunity to take advantage against a team that's really struggling this season, that has some pieces here and there, but is in a complete squad and a squad that's young and struggling. So for the Panthers, I'm looking for Octavius Hickman to kind of play with that energy that he played with. We saw spurts of it last night, and I think when he gets that mentality to kind of try and take over a game, he can get to the cup and he can be efficient scoring the basketball. I think his defense also showed some improvements last night. Him with the Panthers, he's as important as anybody comes on that team because the offense runs through him. If they are able to get it inside to him, you can trust that shooting to hopefully come along behind him, but he gives you the buckets from in tight. Jordan and Josiah Massey also both struggled against Rock Island. Hopefully they can have a get-right game scoring the basketball. I mentioned this a couple minutes ago about how against Rock Island, UT rebounded pretty well. So they have, again, it's a team that they're going to have a size advantage of against Sterling. Hopefully they can put that together and limit the turnovers. That killed them on Tuesday against Rock Island. So hopefully it's putting all these pieces together, flattening the page, getting consistency, because at 10-7 overall this season, they're still yet to go a couple games with consistent play, but I think they are going to have an opportunity to do it with 3 games in 4 days this weekend, especially against a struggling Sterling team.
Yeah, they got some big opportunities coming up with the games on Saturday and Monday. We talked about Rock Island, what they're going to for their shootout for MLK weekend. You and I are going to be splitting duty at Wharton Fieldhouse Saturday. We'll have UT taking on East Peoria. We mentioned them. They've got a 4-star recruit going to Illinois. East Peoria having one of their best years in a long time that I can remember. Quentin Kitt, I'm so excited to see him play. Moline's playing DeKalb in the nightcap, and then you've got Monday, I believe UT's playing Batavia, and then Moline will be playing
Moline Metamora. That'll be a really good game.
Yeah, that should be. Yeah.
UT lost to Metamora by a couple scores in the opening weeks of the season. So I think that could be a really tight game against Moline.
Moline and Metamora always going to be thematically linked together from a lot of those players on the state title teams that played together in AU ball. They won state titles literally back-to-back on that same night back in 2023. So should be fun to see them rolling into town. So this weekend's exciting. Some big opportunities for both Moline and United Township. And you mentioned how they are 10-7 UT, that is, and they're playing. It's been weird because I feel like they've been playing well. They were shorthanded in some aspects in DeKalb. I know they've had some tough losses. They played some really good competition. Feels like this is a team that can maybe hit a stride and really turn it on at the end of the year. The Rock Island matchup sometimes is just a bad one for them. We'll see if they can obviously if they want to go far in the postseason, that's a matchup they're going to have to, hopefully they can tune things up against. So I will be intrigued to see how that is able to be navigated. And excited to see what UT is able to do this weekend.
We've already seen a pretty decent patch from them. They won 7 of 8 at one point this season after starting 2-2. Then they had a couple of great weeks and had a couple of rough weeks since. So they just need to find a happy medium there and go stack up some wins and hopefully get a couple big ones this weekend.
Regardless, I will say this is a stretch here. These next 2-3 weeks is where we're really going to learn where the Western Big Six is decided. And a lot of it does, and honestly, oddly enough, a lot of it goes right through Wharton Fieldhouse. Friday with them playing Quincy. If they can win that, they'll finish Moline. That is, they'll finish the first half of the conference season undefeated at 7-0. And then the following 2 Fridays, they host UT, who's I don't know if record-wise they're tied for 3rd, but they're in 3rd in the league, 2 games back.
Solo 3rd, I believe.
And then the following Friday after that, Rocky will come to town. So the potential outright Big Six championship is going to roll through Wharton Fieldhouse here over the next couple weeks.
Exciting times ahead. You mentioned Rocky. They have Alleman. They're going there. on Friday night. What would Ken tell you to say about this one?
I think that just continue to play, for them to continue to play their game. I think that's the biggest thing. We mentioned Allman's improved. They got beat up a bit last night by Quincy. Very impressive win for Quincy. Allman having to make the road trip. Allman's had some roller coaster moments. They've had some good moments. They've had some rough moments still. There's obviously kind of with them and even kind of with Geneseo, what we've seen in their last 2 games, there's just a bit of a gear. As improved as Allman and Geneseo are, there's still a bit of a gear that they just can't really get to yet. And a lot of it's youth, a lot of it's just lack of depth, with the level of athlete type thing. It's in some aspects. So that's kind of where it is. At least for Allman, especially, it's youth and I don't know about lack of depth, but a lot of those guys that they were playing as very young. But Rock Island just handling their business, staying focused. I think that's going to be the most important thing for them heading forward in this next set of games.
I was going to say the same thing about playing their game. They controlled the pace against UT. They controlled the pace and blew out Geneseo. So playing with that energy and that whole vibe that team is top to bottom, they should have no problem on Friday.
Great vibes coming this Friday night. We'll see you at all the games and join us right back here next Wednesday.